You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 164. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. This is your safe space to find and create your new relationship with alcohol, however you want that to be. This is a judgment-free zone. And I want to welcome all my long listeners, and any if you're new, welcome. I'm so glad you have found me. Now, before I get into talking about today's topic, which is powerful, by the way, it's a powerful concept, acceptance, not apathy, I first wanted to let you know that I have just released a new guide, it's a short guide called 8 Habits Keeping Daily Drinkers Stuck and How to Break Free. This is good. This gives you 8 very specific patterns that I find people tend to be in. And whether you experience 1, 2, 6, or 8 of these, this will be a practical, helpful guide to help you get started today. Yes, today, in changing your relationship with alcohol. The guide is completely free. There is a link to it in the show notes, and you can also find it through my links on Instagram. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and read all my wonderful, helpful tips there, you will be very welcome too. You can find me there, 90dayslater.co. Yes, the .co is important in my Instagram name, or is it a handle? Not sure. Anyway, that's where you'll find me on Instagram. So let's get on with the show. Now, if you have been drinking more than you want to, you might feel, as I felt for many years, stuck in a cycle of shame, guilt, and frustration. And you might think, when listening to the title of today's podcast, that accepting your drinking means giving up or admitting defeat. Well, here's the truth. Acceptance is not weakness. In fact, it is the first step towards creating lasting change. It is the best thing you can do right now if you are confused, stuck, bewildered, all those things. So let's explore what acceptance really is, why fighting it doesn't work, and how accepting where you are, can actually empower you to drink less. Now let me start with a quick story. I was out driving the other day, and you know how I like a driving story. Yes, this is driving, not parking today. And this person in front of me, they cut me off, right? They came from nowhere and boom, right, they were right there in front of me. I had to brake and the whole thing. Now, what might your first reaction be in this scenario? Anger, maybe a bit of yelling, honking your horn, or maybe just silently fuming in frustration. And I know on that day, I certainly checked off 2 of these 3 things before I paused. And I actually went through this mini coaching exercise, right? I want you to think, does that reaction help? Does it undo the fact that they have just cut you off? They've just moved in front of you. Does it change anything? No, it really doesn't. Now, you might think that by honking your horn, you're kind of showing your irritation and you're making them feel a bit irritated, but they might be like totally, I don't care. It might have been a game to them. They might have been trying to get a rise out of you, right? So instead, what I want you to consider, what can help, and what really helps me, is accepting people sometimes make mistakes, or they act thoughtlessly. Maybe they do it out of design and they're being thoughtful on purpose. Now, acceptance does not mean you are okay with this. It does not mean you are okay with reckless driving. It just means you're not going to let it ruin your day, right? Turn it into yourself. What does it mean for you? So now let's apply this idea to drinking. When you drink more than you wanted to, what is your typical reaction? Now, most people tell me it's a combination, more of shame, self-criticism, or a promise to do better next time. But how often does this approach actually work? I mean, over the long term, again and again and again. Exactly. Because here's the thing. Acceptance is not saying it's fine that I overdrank. It's more about saying, this is what happened. I'm human. Now, what can I learn from this and move forward? Let's talk about why this is so hard to do, because many people, when I say this, they nod and they say that makes sense, but so why can't I? If you are someone who's been drinking more than you want, you might feel like acknowledging this is admitting failure. You might think, if I accept this, it means I'm weak. It means I'll never change. It means that all those fears I have about myself, what's going to happen, are true. It means that what society, what AA, what everyone says is that, is true. That if you have any kind of issue with drinking, you should just stop drinking right away, right? We sort of go into that spiral. But let me ask you this. How has resisting your reality, right, been working for you? How has punishing yourself every time you overdrink, how has that helped you to drink less? Now, it might have helped over a short term, right? We typically have that bounce in January, right? This idea that, I overdid it again, but now I'm going to be really, 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 really good. I need to punish myself for overindulging over the festive season. I don't know what got into me. And that then becomes a whole cycle of shame and guilt on its own. And by the way, if you want to break free from that and you want to do dry January, maybe you failed already, you think you would have done, but you've missed the boat. You have not. I am running a 4-week program and not all the materials have been released yet because we're still in January. If you want the link for that, you can get that in the show notes, or you can email me, anna@90dayslater.co. It's also linked from my Instagram too. So come along and join us. By the way, even if you're listening to this episode in June, right, and you're feeling like you want a break, you want to take a 31-day break, you can still join up then, right? You will not have at that point the live coaching calls, but you'll have the recordings of the live coaching calls. But if you're joining today, in January 2025, we still have one live coaching call with me this week, the 23rd. That is open to you, right? Especially, I would suggest, if you've been struggling with dry January, I can help you to reset that. All right, sorry, got into a bit of a thing there about dry January. So let's go back to this idea of resisting your reality and beating yourself up and all the rest of it. Here's what I've seen time and again. When you fight yourself, you create more tension. And that tension often leads to more drinking, because drinking feels like the easiest way to escape that reality, right? To escape that tension. So now let's redefine acceptance. Acceptance does not mean you approve of your drinking or that you're giving up on changing. None of those things. It simply means you're being honest with yourself about where you are right now. Consider that it's like looking at a map. If you're lost, really the only way to get to where you want to go is to first figure out where you are, right? Then that's what acceptance does. It gives you some kind of clarity, might be the word, or at least it just gives you a lens. It says, here's your starting point, right? Like it or love it, or hate it, rather. This is where you're starting from. And here's something very powerful. Really, when you stop judging yourself, when you just say, look, I accept, this is where I am. I'm starting here. I've been trying all these things and I feel like I've been on this journey forever. I haven't got to my destination and this is where I am right now. You are going to be freeing up, when you get to accepting that, you're going to be freeing up all the energy you've been using to resist reality. Right? All of that energy where you've been fighting who you are and fighting how you think about yourself and fighting, sort of engaged in this mental chatter tussle. When you accept, you release all of that energy, and that goes now towards understanding why you are drinking and what you truly want instead. So let's break down the self-critical cycle. It's kind of like the hamster wheel, right? That so many people get stuck in. And you might see yourself with some of these steps or all of these steps, but this is what I see. So let's break down this self-critical cycle that I see so many people get stuck in, and maybe you resonate to this full thing or just 1 or 2 steps. But I think it's a great starting place. So the first point is you drink too much. Now, too much in that sentence is your assessment. I work with people who maybe have 1 or 2 glasses of wine too much a week. I work with people who drink 12 glasses of wine too much a day. The too much assessment comes from us. Yes, there are government guidelines and association guidelines, and you might have your own quote unquote rules. But at this initial point, this is just, where you think you're drinking too much, where for you it's a struggle. Next, you feel guilty and ashamed. Then you promise yourself you'll do better, until next step you slip up and drink too much again, and then the guilt comes back and the cycle repeats. And what we tend to find is that the volume of the drinking goes up and up and up, because the volume of the negative feelings and the shame and the guilt that we feel about ourselves goes up and up and up. So we are trying to use more and more alcohol to feel better, and there's a bigger mountain to climb there. This cycle thrives on resistance, on fighting yourself and your habits. But here's the kicker, right? Resisting doesn't fix anything. It just keeps you stuck. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that resisting cravings to drink does not work. Resisting cravings to drink just makes them seem even more irresistible, right? Acceptance is the quality that breaks that cycle. It says, okay, I drank more than I wanted to. What was going on for me in that moment? What can I learn from this? Here's why acceptance is really so powerful. It just gives you insight, right? Some people might say clarity, but I think it's kind of like it's a view into your brain. When you stop fighting yourself, you really can get curious. You can start asking important questions like, why am I drinking right now? I mean, if you just want to write that one question down, and at any point when you find yourself drinking, and I use those words advisedly because we often feel like drinking comes from nowhere, just stop and ask, why am I drinking right now? What am I feeling right now? What am I trying to avoid? Am I trying to avoid feeling? What do I really want in the moment? Right? Instead of focusing on the action of not drinking, you can focus on what you want to create for yourself. Now, this will be different for everybody. It might be a sense of peace. It might be you want to feel more connected to your family, or it may even just be a better night's sleep. Acceptance shifts the way you see things, the way you see yourself, shifts your mindset from I'm bad for drinking, right? I shouldn't have done that, to I'm human and I'm learning how to handle this differently. Now let's talk about how to apply this practically in daily life. I've got 3 steps here. Number 1, I want you to get into the habit, habits can work for us, of reflecting without judgment. Whenever you overdrink, just simply pause. And instead of allowing yourself to spiral into guilt, just take a moment to reflect and ask, what led to this? How do I feel about this? What can I learn from this moment? And if you don't feel like doing it in the moment, do this the next day, but do it. Secondly, I want you to really get into the practice of self-compassion. And if this is really hard, do that old trick that we're taught from when we're quite young. I want you to imagine that a close friend is coming to you and saying, I drank more than I wanted to last night and I feel awful. Now, would you tell them they're a failure? No. You probably listen to them, right? And treat yourself the same way. There's just nothing to be gained from whipping yourself. Thirdly, focus on small wins. Change does not happen overnight. Celebrate small steps, like pausing before your first drink, or maybe drinking 3 sips less than usual. Each small win builds momentum. And for those of you out there who are grimacing as you hear me speak about this, and you're thinking that I'm saying this is like those sports days where everyone gets a medal for participation rather than winning. No, this just we're not pretending things are super-de-duper exactly where you want to be, but please do celebrate when something goes right, because you're so quick to hit yourself over the head when something goes wrong. Now, these 3 things, it sounds so simple, I know, and you've probably heard it before, but it is revolutionary. Clients tell me again and again that simply deciding to be compassionate with themselves makes such a huge change. And it can take weeks for this to become your habitual response. Remember, this is not, you're going to do this once and you're always going to be compassionate. This might take you 3 months for that to become your new response. But then that will be your new response, and then things will be changing along the way. So that concludes today's episode, and the big summary takeaway is acceptance is not apathy. It is not saying I will never change. It's saying this is where I am right now and I'm ready to take my next step. Listen, drinking less is a process. You do not have to get it perfect. You just have to keep showing up for yourself. And in that vein, I'm going to give you a challenge for the week. This week, whenever, or I should say if, but probably whenever you drink more than you wanted to, I want you to just practice this acceptance. Reflect on the moment, be curious, not critical, and notice how just doing that one little thing shifts and changes how you feel about yourself. And if this resonates with you, start small. Maybe it's just 1 less drink or 2 sips less. Maybe it's pausing before your first sip. Really, acceptance is the foundation, and from there you can build something amazing. Acceptance does not make you weak, it makes you brave. It's the moment you stop fighting yourself, stop fighting your reality, and start creating a life that really lines up with what you truly want. So what will you accept today, and what step will you take towards the life you want? And if that is taking a first step to absolutely just changing how you drink, just being free of this struggle for once and for all, let's talk. This is what I do day in, day out. I work with people like you and help you change your life so that your life becomes about your life, not about the alcohol in it. When we have our initial call, which by the way is free, I will map out for you the exact plan to get you to your goal. The exact plan. And you will not believe the results that you can create in a very short amount of time. It is so good. All right, so if you want to do that, there's a link in the show notes, or email me anna@90dayslater.co. Otherwise, I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.